one piece of this is engagement, student success. But then the reality is another big piece of this is compliance. So, can you talk a little bit about why RSI is going to be so important in regards to the accreditation process?
Yeah, so it is the defining characteristic between a correspondence course and an online course. That's how we define them is through RSI. A correspondence course has very little RSI, has very little. If you think about it on a spectrum, it's on the very low end of engagement. It's completely isolating and usually one way. For an online class, it's meant to be pathways that are highly interactive and engaging with one another. And that's the definition for an online class. It needs to mirror as closely as possible to what we're doing in the physical classroom, acknowledging there's always going to be some differences because of the modality. So that's why such a heavy push is placed upon RSI, because we want students to truly have this opportunity for actual, genuine, authentic learning where they're not teaching themselves. They haven't sent away for a course by mail. This is a college, right? This is not a correspondence course. I'm not sending in something in the mail to learn how to do underwater basket weaving, right? This is a real thing. It's college. And for us too, for the majority of our students are transfer bound. So we likewise need to ensure the integrity of our course offerings. So RSI is yet another way that we are ensuring that students are truly learning the material in a genuine, accurate way from experts rather than Google searching, having AI summarize it for them. Because in the future, it's not unforeseeable that the UCs or the CSUs may want to audit our courses for transferability to see if we're truly hitting that metric, right? Because we all know it's easier for students to outsource their own work in an online class because they don't see us face to face and look us in the eye necessarily. So that sort of anonymity makes it easier for them to do that. But we need to ensure that these are genuine college courses. And RSI is the tool we use to do it. So there's a lot at stake, right? There's loss of learning, loss of financial aid, loss of accreditation, loss of articulation for transferability. For the end of the day, for us as instructors, I just want to say, we all appreciate when students are tapped in to our classes. We love that feeling, don't we? It's such a high because we love our disciplines. We love it. We do. We're super passionate about it. And we want students to have that passion. So how do you do that if there's no engagement?
So, along those lines, can you talk a little bit more about the actual process of accreditation? How they're actually going to be assessing
Mhm.
us for RSI, because it's an online course. They're not coming into our class, right?
No, they're in a way they're not, but they kind of are.
They are.
So it exists at two different levels. On the one level, they're assessing the course. And so that's done through the course outline of record. We have what's called the distance ed addendum, which is an additional documentation added to our course outline of record that allows us legally to offer a course online. And so, like our curriculum committee, we actually added 2 questions on RSI in our distance ed addendum, one for how instruction's going to be delivered, and the other for that communication piece, be it feedback or students engaging with each other. So that ACCJC has that, right? So they can look at that and they can see what idealistically or aspirationally this is what's going to happen in the course. But maybe what folks don't know, because they know about the course. They wrote it, they had to come to CAC, they had to defend it and all that. What they may not know is when we are, and we are currently in an accreditation cycle, is they being ACCJC will randomly select courses and we will grant them access into instructors' Canvas shells. And they will go into Canvas and have a peek around to see what you're doing.
And will instructors know
It's,
that they have been chosen?
I'm not entirely sure if they know or if it's meant to remain anonymous, because it's not meant to penalize any individual instructor as if it's an evaluation. So I suspect it has to remain anonymous, and it's just randomly selected and kind of like pulling names out of a hat. But there is this understanding that it's not to be used in a way to evaluate the instructor. It's meant to really evaluate our practices across our institution, which is why they're going to look at a lot of them to try to get a kind of feel. And they will acknowledge that an online class for, say, accounting is going to look very different than anthropology, right? You have different styles and different approaches. But yes, someone may come in, take a look to see, well, what does your lecture content look like? What do your assessments look like? Do students have an opportunity to try out new ideas through an assessment? Do you provide feedback on assignments? Right? All of those kind of checklist items that you and the FRC and CAC have all come up with, like these are all good examples of RSI. Those are what they'll be looking for. And you can see that in their rubric. So ACCJC created an RSI rubric. It's very generous. I have to say, if you look at it, you realize you needn't be too afraid. But it's on a scale, and it even says things like it's, emerging, which wouldn't pass, which means you've started RSI, but you really actually haven't completed it. And I can give you an example if you like.
Mhm.
So an example of an emerging RSI practice would be I created a lecture video. And that's it. Okay. And then kind of the next benchmark on their rubric would be that it's developed, which is passing. And that means I created a lecture video and then I paired an assignment to go with the lecture video. It could even just be a lecture survey. It could be a discussion board post. So that means you've developed it. And then when you get into well developed, it's more like I created a lecture video. I created an assignment that I paired with it. And then I gave students the opportunity to peer review each other's responses in that assignment. And I additionally added my own feedback to it. Right. And so now you can see that's like full-fledged RSI, where all of the agents or actors are interacting with one another.